Everyone is racing to deploy AI. Departments are buying tools, plugging in data, and seeking productivity gains at a speed that is hard to track. This puts leadership in a difficult spot. Do you wait for the ink to dry on new AI regulations to ensure you are fully compliant? Or do you deploy right now without formal guardrails so your competitors do not leave you behind? This timeline shows the core of the problem. The release of foundational AI models curves steeply upwards, while the introduction of global regulatory frameworks staggers far behind. Everything is happening simultaneously in a very compressed window. If you freeze deployments while waiting for the regulatory curve to catch up, you fall into this productivity gap. Rivals capture the efficiency gains, and your teams are left operating at manual speed. But if you ride that top adoption curve blindly, you expose your systems directly to these failure points: massive regulatory fines, sensitive data exfiltration, and adversaries evading your models entirely. True AI governance functions as a continuous operational discipline, one that lives in the daily logs and code of the security team rather than a static policy document. Surviving this landscape requires balancing speed and security through hard, practical controls implemented today. You cannot wait for geopolitical consensus to tell you how to protect your network. Right now, that geopolitical consensus does not exist. Multinational organizations have to navigate a fractured landscape of contradictory rules, depending on exactly where they do business. Look at the US approach. It is entirely market-led, prioritizing speed, innovation, and giving individual business units the freedom to operate. The trade-off for that speed is unpredictable legal liability down the road. Because there is no strong federal standard, individual states like Colorado are creating their own specific AI laws, leaving companies to navigate a complex legal patchwork. Compare that to the European Union's rights-led approach. The EU AI Act enforces strict, risk-based compliance, requiring mandatory human oversight and detailed transparency audits for high-risk systems. This creates significant legal friction. Companies operating here often face pushback from their legal teams, which slows down the rollout of new enterprise models and risks internal stagnation. Then there is the standards-first approach seen in the UK and Singapore. These regions rely on flexible, principles-based frameworks like ISO 42001 to encourage safe innovation. While sensible, principles-based frameworks require a lot of heavy lifting. Your cross-functional teams have to interpret the standards themselves and design their own specific guardrails to make them operational. Because this regulatory gridlock is so varied, you cannot simply check a box and assume you are secure. Organizations have to build and enforce their own internal governance philosophies right now. That philosophy gets tested the second employees start using new AI tools, before your security team has finished writing the official policy. The traditional IT reflex is total prohibition. You block access to all unauthorized AI tools outright to maintain a spotless compliance record on paper. But prohibition creates a false sense of security. It stifles productivity and forces employees to find workarounds. They turn to unmonitored shadow AI, blinding your security team to the real risks of data leakage. This quadrant contrasts total prohibition against governance by enablement, where you allow AI but audit data flows. This flows into a deployment decision tree. Tools start in alpha recommendation mode, proving accuracy there and in beta, before earning autonomous action in production. Phased rollouts and safe enablement give you complete visibility over what your organization is actually doing. You maintain tight security controls without killing business velocity. Philosophy alone will not secure a network. You have to back up these boundaries with concrete daily security practices. Legacy compliance relies on annual penetration testing, but an AI model updates and adapts constantly. Testing your network once a year means you are completely exposed for the other 11 months. Because AI environments change so frequently today, a yearly audit cannot catch model drift or new prompt injection tactics. For large enterprises, moving to a quarterly red teaming cycle provides the necessary frequency to ensure guardrails actually hold under pressure. This level of testing requires a serious commitment. It carries high financial costs and demands dedicated, persistent security personnel to run the simulations. To manage this, you need a clear organizational structure, specifically the 3 lines of defense model. You have to separate the CISO's risk oversight duties from the IT department's day-to-day operations, ideally directed by a cross-functional AI council. Without independent oversight and continuous adversarial testing, any AI policy you write is just a paper tiger. It looks good in a boardroom, but will collapse under the pressure of a real-world attack. You cannot govern a black box system you do not understand, and a perfect regulatory policy cannot stop a cyber attack. Only operational discipline can do that. This playbook graphic breaks down the immediate next steps you should take, categorized entirely by your organization's specific risk profile. If you operate critical infrastructure or a heavily regulated enterprise, you have to formalize that 3 lines of defense structure immediately. You must also map your operations to the EU AI Act's risk-based tiering and appoint a chief AI officer to centralize accountability across your departments. For mid-market and high-growth companies, your timeline is tighter. You cannot afford to wait for official ISO 42001 certification to begin building your governance framework. You need to adopt the governance by enablement model today. Deploy strict identity controls and enforce alpha and beta gating for all internal AI tools to keep your teams moving safely. Finally, for security teams across all organizational sizes, your role in corporate governance requires a mindset shift. Continuous quarterly red teaming has moved to the center of the modern playbook, acting as the live proof that your governance structures are actually working in the field. Acting decisively today with these operational controls is the only practical way forward. It allows you to compete safely in the AI arms race without sacrificing the integrity of your enterprise.